Hi, I'm Joe Scacciaferro, and this is On Location. All right, you've heard me say hundreds of times, the key to success in our industry is not just your skills, but networking with industry folks and making new connections. Most of the time, these new connections come from a coworker introducing you to someone they've worked with before, someone they trust. Then there's what I call the stumble on or the chance meeting. So my next guest is one of those stumble-ons. His name was dropped on me by a mutual friend who's not even in our business. And he said, hey, I got this distant cousin friend who I think does what you do. You should meet him. By the way, he doesn't really even know what I do. So honestly, I've heard this statement hundreds of times. And usually it's not a great match, but you never know. So I set up the meeting. Turns out this guy is awesome. He has worked on, and I'm just going to read it because I couldn't even remember all of this. He's a Steadicam operator, he's a Steadicam tower operator, railcam, and various aerial rigs. He's worked on shows like the Oscar, the Emmys Red Carpet, MTV Music Awards, Country Music Awards, 25th anniversary of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, America's Got Talent, Elton John's Farewell from Dodger Stadium, Adele's One Night Only from the Griffin Observatory. That's just a few. I just pulled names out as I went through his list. And in some of the film work where he's a director of photography, it's The Alien Invasion in Arizona, The Gun Down, Easy Rider 2, Born Wild, Dug Up, Killing Cupid. Again, I just pulled lists. So the moral of this forever introduction is never turn your back on a chance introduction. Now, let's welcome my new best friend, Brian Lataille. Brian, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Pleasure to be here.
And I didn't crush your last name,
No,
right?
you did not.
I was telling Brian before we went on his last name. I was trying to make him Italian. I was calling him Brian Lataille, but he's not. It's a French name. So, Brian, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Again, looking at your stuff, I was blown away at the things. And you're one of the unique people who's accomplished so much and is yet so humble and so matter of fact about what we do. And that is the perfect combination. So put your Wayback Machine on for a second. Let's go back to Brian Young. How did all of this begin? Where was that bug when it bit you?
Well, Joe, I always was interested in photography in general. And, at 10 years old, I got a camera, a still camera. And, part of just knowing, knowing framing is really important. And if you don't know that, then, operating a film camera or a movie camera or a video camera is just, you're not going to have your pictures framed up right. So, starting out with a still camera and just taking thousands of pictures is one good way to start. And then when I saw that there was, when I saw movie cameras and I saw all these rigs and everything on TV, but some behind the scenes looks, I was like, I want to do that. And I just tried to do everything I could to figure out how I could get there. And I started off at a public access station, and they had the cameras there, and I started learning how to use them, and all the other various pieces of equipment, and that was on my way. And then I got into a college by chance from a friend who had given me a Premiere magazine. I saw the ad for the college in the back of the magazine. I was like, I got to do this. And next thing you know, I'm out here in Hollywood going to school. When I finished school, I was, jumping into doing, all kinds of assisting and building remote heads and just starting all that work. And it was really, the more I did, the more I wanted it. And it was like a hunger, a never satisfying hunger that I just had to keep going.
That's awesome. You're a man after my own heart. You know what I get asked a lot, and I'm going to try to call you on it. You made it seem so easy. I came out, I did for some photography. I liked this. Then I went, you and I didn't have the advantage of YouTube. We didn't have the advantage of the internet. We didn't have that access to the world. So we had to figure out, like you said, a magazine,
Right.
You went to a station. But when you're in these places, if you don't have the experience, how do you get in and how do you advance? What was the key for you getting that first gig?
I would have to say the key to getting the any gig, communication, talking with people. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to, when somebody says, "Hey, can you do this?" If you have a feeling in your gut that no matter what, you can do this without fail, then do it. Just say, "Yes, I can do it." And if you fail, you understand and you learn. But because there is no other way of doing it, if there was no, some of these cheap video cameras that are out there now where you can just go and you can buy one for a couple $1,000s and just go and shoot. You like I said, most of the time you end up with a still camera. And so you really have to put yourself out there and really feel like, this is something that you can do. And starting off as an assistant, loading camera magazines, you get your eyes see everything. And, then you just start putting yourself into more and more things. A lot of them are like student projects, but a lot of times those student projects turn into something a lot more. And then you say, you meet somebody on that student project that says, "Hey, I'm a producer over here and we're about to do this project and I think you'd be really good." You go out there, you put yourself out there and you just get going.
You just said everything. That's the one thing. I call those, and we at Faro City, we call those soft skills, and the soft skills that nobody teaches. And soft skills. And you said the other thing about you go in, and if you fail, and fail's really not the right word, but you don't do it the right way,
Right.
Or you don't succeed. It's a learning curve.
That's right.
I mean, it really helps you move along. And I'm sure it didn't end your career.
No, because you just
in a lot of ways,
your career,
There you go. That's it. And those gigs you're talking about, a camera assist and loading this they're not glamorous.
No, not by any means.
But they put you there, and you said it very, very, very succinctly. You keep your eyes open and you see everything. But if you don't, you could be on that set, you could be in that studio and not learn a damn thing.
Yeah. Keep your eyes open, your mouth shut, and learn, and soak up everything like a sponge. And you don't go sitting on the dollies, when you're not the camera operator. You don't go touching the camera when you're not the assistant. You don't go doing, start messing with somebody else's job when they're going to take it very what's the word? They're going to take it very rough. They won't like you touching their stuff. It's going to be very hard for you to do anything else, and everybody's going to start to look at you like, "Who is this guy? Get him off the set. He's all over the place. He's touching our stuff. He's not doing what he's supposed to do." Just stand there and look, and keep your mouth shut, and you're going to learn so much.
Yep. So if you're on a set, let's just say a big set, and I'm not you yet. Let's you coming up or some young coming up. If he or she's there, and it's your advice is perfect. Shut your mouth and just watch. but there's a point at which you may see something that you completely don't understand.
Mhm.
Is it appropriate, and when, that you can ask about that?
Absolutely. Sometimes, especially if you're like the camera assistant, just loading magazines, um, or I should say, film loader loading magazines, or in charge of the data, and you see something, ask your next assistant up. Ask them, and they will use a lot of times, depending on who the director of photography is. They may say, "Oh yeah, when he's got a minute, he'd be more than happy to answer your question." So just go and ask him. And the first time I did this was on a set. It was Jack Green was the director of photography, and I went up to the assistant. And I said, "What is that box over there?" And it was a Flickr box. But it was one that Jack had made, and so and I didn't know this, and I was like, how does it work? What's the deal behind it? And he says, when he's got him, he'd be more than happy to tell you about it. So I waited, and then I asked him, and he was just the nicest man, so willing to just explain the whole thing. And it was I couldn't believe it. Here I am talking to the director of photography, and but as you get going more and more, and you start coming up the ranks, you realize that it's not such a big deal, and you can talk to them, and everything is okay to be able to do that. You just got to get over your fear of, like, well, this guy's the DP. I can't just go ask him a question. But by asking and finding out more from an assistant or from somebody that you're working with on set, they'd be more than happy to talk to you about them.
That's awesome. Let's jump into your career. And I mean, you've got some amazing skill sets. Some people may not understand the Steadicam or towers or any of that. So let's talk a little bit about how you started making the move to get to a Steadicam, because that's a jump.
It's a big jump. And as I said, I was assisting, and after assisting, I started operating on more jobs, and I'm like, I really would like to start doing Steadicam, and so I it took a lot, but I finally got a rig, and I started operating. It was a lot of student shoots, a lot of freebies, low budget stuff, and you just keep biting the bullet until at one point you start working on TV shows and movies, and it just comes to you, and you meet all these connections along the way through that process of coming up. So by the time you get to operate on some of these big shows, you're not so green, you're not so novice at it, and everything just falls in place. And that's the thing about coming up. You have to be patient. You have to not, say, "Hey, I can do that. I'm going to go work on that show." And it's one of the biggest shows in Hollywood. And then you get on it. And what happens if you fail? Because you didn't take that other job that you could have gained more experience, and you waited a couple years to get more experience, and then you got that job that you went to go work on, and then you didn't fail. And that's one of the things you have to do with the lower shows, to where you're not so afraid to make that mistake, where yes, it still matters, and yes, you still want to do a good job, but that's where you can take the time to make those mistakes. And it's not really a mistake. It's a learning curve. It's experience, because the more you learn like that, the better off you're going to be for that big job.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And again, I've had the great pleasure of working with a bunch of decent Steadicam ops, actually really good, not even decent. But the thing I learned, right, it's so much more than just the camera.
That's correct.
So there again, you said it, but you buried it in a very simple conversation. Is you took all these extra gigs, you went out and worked on it. In the music world, as a guitar player, it's woodshedding. You just keep running scales all day, and you just keep working at it all the time. and you don't know. You don't know when it's going to come.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
and Steadicam is also very physical.
It's physical, it's technical, it's so many things. When you're, I did Steadicam for 25 years, and in that time, when you first get your first rig, for me, I learned everything I could about that rig, and I took it apart, I put it back together. But I also had a basic understanding of how things are put together and taken apart. So that helped me. And, you can't obviously just go pulling something apart and have no idea how to put it back together, because then you're going to fail. But if you have a friend or somebody that is good with mechanical things like that, and then you have your Steadicam and you want to learn more about it, you want to learn what voltages go where, and what cables I have, and what plugs into the camera, and this is all part of that learning. And if you plug in something wrong and then you plug it into your camera and then into your video, and you're not really sure what you're doing, but you just know that the video cable goes here, and then you just shorted something out. Well, what happened? Well, obviously there was a ground loop somewhere, and I got to figure that out. Where's the ground loop? How do I figure that? And it just keeps going and going. And these are those times when you want to take to learn that. Because if you don't learn that, and then again, you get on that big job and you short out somebody's camera, what good is that going to do? Then they don't have a camera for the rest of the day. You're kind of in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of the point I was going at, is that you have to be a systems troubleshooter, but you have to be able to do it mechanically.
Yes.
You have to be able to do it, and you're not isolated.
Right.
You're not on an island. You're interconnected to everything.
Right.
So you've got,
and don't be afraid,
talk to me about that.
Don't be afraid to ask your assistant for help, because that's what they're there for. If you don't understand something, ask them, because they will help you. That's, and, if it's a silly question, well, try and figure it out for yourself. But if it's an honest to God good question, like do you have your video tap, is that 12 volt? The camera body itself, is that 12 volt? Oh no, it's 6 volt. Oh, okay. Well, we need an adapter for that to be able to make sure we don't short it out. And you add too much voltage to the camera, and you're going to definitely blow it up. So and not only is it technical, but it's very physical. And if you come in for the day and you're not feeling good, well, that's going to hinder your performance. And then if you're feeling tired, you eat too much at lunch. Excuse me. If you eat too much at lunch, and then you can't you can't perform after lunch because your stomach's full and you're just kind of feeling sleepy, you got to snap out of it, because it's going to show.
Awesome stuff. Give me, it's funny, who would think that nutrition would be part of succeeding as an operator or in the industry?
Yeah.
That's just, again, it's not something you don't go to school and learn that.
That's right.
Let's talk about the difference between a tower cam, steady tower cam, and explain. I mean, we have images and we're going to go through that, but explain from an operator standpoint or from a use standpoint, which one's when?
When I first really started in the industry, I was working at a place called Netman Systems, and they were a remote head company. And I started off with assisting on big shows for the with the remote head, and we would go out and we'd assemble the head, and then we would assist the assistants when they're going to put the camera on the head and getting all that. Now, a lot of times those heads go on different things. They can go on cranes, they can go on towers, they can go on all sorts of things. And so when you have that remote head, especially like when you're going on a camera car, you got to make sure that, you understand the rules and things for a camera car. and it's really necessary that you understand safety rules for that camera car. You understand your way around the camera car, and that if you don't know something, ask. Same thing with a rail cam. A rail cam will run you right over. It goes on a track, and then usually a dolly, and then the remote head sits on the dolly. Whether there's a tower on it to get it higher and lower when you want it, and usually it's only about a 6 foot tower, nothing too tall, because you don't, then you start getting the whole track unstable. But a nice little 6 foot tower or 3 foot tower, that'll work nicely for you. And then there's descender rigs, and they come down way down from the ceiling. The base of it's all the way up at the ceiling, and then it will descend all the way to the ground for you. And you got to be careful around them. Obviously, always keep your eye on where that is, because you don't want to get hit on the head, and you don't want anybody else to get hit on the head. And so all the safety is really important. And so there's multiple ways of putting, or multiple equipment that these heads can go on. And you say, well, Steadicam, well, how does that pertain to a remote head, or anything like that, or a stabilized head? And balance is key for a lot of it. And same thing with Steadicam. So if you can balance a camera on a Steadicam, you can certainly balance a camera on a remote head, and vice versa. And that's what a lot of these heads are, is balance.
Yeah, boy. Yeah, I'm at a great advantage here. My son has evolved up to pretty high-end first call robos in sports world. He's actually out at the Olympics right now. And I've learned from him the nuances of, the first thing you do is you're loading in, and then you're building. And if you're building on a trust that goes up, everything you just said, critically important, because the only people underneath that trust are talent.
Correct.
And that's the last thing you need to happen, is to hit a multi-million-dollar somebody.
Yeah, no joke. It's just, you definitely don't want them falling into like a lot of times on sets, you'll have a tower cam that's placed in a pit, so that the tower can be hidden a lot of times, and then come up out of that pit and take the picture. Well, if people aren't careful around that, where that tower is placed in the hole, they're going to fall in the hole, and that's just something you don't want. And it's happened 100 times, and you just gotta make people aware of it. Make sure the AD knows, so he can make the announcements. And even after you make 1,000 announcements about it, people still fall in the hole. So it's definitely something you got to watch out for.
Let's talk about some of these gigs. So I'm trying to find a good introduction. Let's talk about what was your first walk onto what would be considered a marquee gig, and what's the nerves like when you do that?
I'd say the first gig I walked onto that was that caliber was Sequest with Roy Scheider. And I was nervous as anything. I was green. I didn't know anything. I walk on, and we have to build a remote head, and then when they call for us, we've got to put it on the crane, get the camera on there, get it all hooked up, and I'm assisting another guy that was in charge. He came out, and I just came to tag along so that I could learn how to do all this stuff. And it was even for me, because I wasn't responsible for it. I was still nervous, because I'm on a professional set. I don't know what's going on. So, I just kind of, again, shut my mouth, put my hands in my pocket unless otherwise instructed, and, just, watched and learned. And when he said, hand me the blah, blah, blah cable, I did. And, then it was just kept snowballing and got bigger and bigger. And before I knew it, I was the one plugging in all the camera cables and balancing the head and making sure that everything was okay and safe. And it had a safety strap on it so it wouldn't fall in the pool if it came off the head or anything like that. And, those are all things that you really want to pay attention to and make sure that, you have the ability to, get to it if needed. And you do have some say if the cameras, the head can starts to get in the water. Speak up, say, whoa, you're getting in the water, or keep your eyes on what's happening too, because now that when you get into that responsible position, you also have to pay attention and make sure that everything around you is safe as well. It's not just up to everybody else on the set. You're now part of everybody else, and now you have to also be aware of everything.
Yeah, I could see where nerves kick in. There's a couple of things that you keyed on, and I want to make sure we touch on them a little bit. So, but right off the bat, people hear the word camera operator or Steadicam operator, and we know in our industry that there's a white glove sort of approach where people just show up, everything's done for them, everything's built, everything's balanced, everything's set, all the cables ready to go. They walk up, whatever the rig is, they get on it, they shoot, and then they leave. Those are rare occasions, right?
Yes and no. A lot of times the operator will show up, and then he'll start just demanding everything. Some operators are like that. And other operators, they come in and they're the nicest pie, and they just make small adjustments of things that you've set up for them, and they are very happy with everything. They shoot and then they walk away, and it's been a great day. Sometimes operators come in and they'll be kind of demanding, but I don't know if it's demanding without cause, because they there's certain things that maybe you have overlooked, like are they going to need comms on their headphones and a microphone that they can speak to their operator at the end of the crane. Well, it's not necessarily your responsibility to have those, but when you hear him say, we need comms, then, go ask your assistant, go ask somebody, do we have any comms around here? Don't just stand there looking at them like, you don't know what's going on. Go and look for those things. But if it's like beyond your scope of what that your responsibility is, say, hey, that's so and so's responsibility, and we need to get him over here so that you can explain to him what you need.
Cool. What do you find more exciting? And maybe it's a balance because of your expertise on both sides of it. Is the tech side or the actual art of shooting? Because you came up a photographer,
right? And then I had to start at the bottom again, to be able to understand where I was going. You have to kind of take a couple steps back to go forward again. And I as far as like maybe what you do more when you're a technician. Obviously, because there's so much to set up and so much to just get going and make sure it stays working, to be responsible for, than there is when you're operating. But when you're operating, you're also trying to figure out now the challenge of the shot. What is it that I have to do? How can we get the camera to move there? What would be the best tool to use in our arsenal to be able to get that shot that we need to get? And by all means, obviously, most of the time it's left up to the director of photography. But when you're the Steadicam operator, a lot of times the directors of photography don't really know what it is they want. But if they kind of go through and describe what the scene is and the actors kind of play it out, you can also step and say, hey, well, and everybody's kind of puzzled at like the best way to shoot this. Now the challenge is you stepping up and saying, yeah, we can come over here and bring them in through the doorway and walk down the hallway, and then we can step into a doorway, let them pass, go behind them. There's so many different things that you can do, and the challenge presents itself when you have to kind of you get to a point where the director's speaking up and he kind of says something about what he would like to see, and the DP's got to worry about the lights, so he's trying to figure out the best way for the lighting to be where you can still move without shadows. And so all three of you are playing an intricate part in how to film something. And when you come up with a certain idea and you display that to the director of photography, now it's up to him to come in and say, well, okay, I do like that, and I like that shot, and I want to work with that. Now I got to figure out my lighting. So now comes the pressure of figuring out the lighting. Then there may be other adjustments from that.
Yeah, yep. You know what's interesting? I'm hearing you talk in the live world, where I spend a lot of my time, uh, both in concert tours and in sports. Operators are selling a shot, and that's what it's called. The directors, he's focused on this and he's calling this shot, but then he's keeping an eye, or his assistant director's keeping an eye on like a jib move or somebody else. And then they're like, wow, I like whatever you just did. We're going to do that again. And we're going to use that as a bumper going out. So you need to be able to, even if you're not called, you still need to be able to think creatively. And that's what you just described.
Correct. Yeah.
You have to think about your art.
Exactly. And sometimes, what I described was basically like a film set. Whereas when you're selling shots for a TV show or TV program, that's something different because, you're shooting all the time. And, directors really like it when you can keep that, uh, the camera moving all the time, just really finding shots. And then, all of a sudden he catches that shot out of the corner of his eye. And he's like, yeah, I want to use that again. Just like you said, I want to use that again. We're going to bump her out with that and, keep it up. Good job. Good work.
Yeah, that's great. What's the energy level like for you? I mean, some of us get amped up, but yet when it's go time, I know myself, everything slows down. I go in high nerves and I go in very amped, but once we go, I just kind of fall into a calm space and execute from there. But I know plenty of people who go the opposite way. They're calm until it's go and then they amp. What's your emotional state when you're shooting?
When I was doing Steadicam, I would get amped up doing Steadicam because it was physical. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed trying to get satisfied the director and the director of photography when I'm trying to get a certain shot that they wanted, and when they came back happy and they were satisfied, that made me feel good. So that whole time I'm amped up because it's also physical. But when I'm sitting down in a chair and I'm operating a remote head or descender rig, it slows down a little bit, even if it's live, because I get a little sometimes tense when the show is a live show, because you want to make it perfect. You don't want that mistake. So you just you try to ride a nice even train and stay calm. So when I first started doing a live show, my very first live show, I was just like, oh wow, this is really live, and what do I do? And you get kind of crazy, but after you start it, it just everything calms down, and you just kind of just do what you've been doing, and that's really a good point that you brought up, because you can get amped up. You can all of a sudden feel like all of a sudden when it's coming to you and it's a really important shot, you can like just start getting all crazy, and you feel like, oh, I got to be amped up, but then you just realize it's just like everything else. You just do your job. That's what you're there for. And when you're good at your job, you don't feel the nerves so much. You just do what you do.
Yeah, so I love the fact that talking to you, talking to your peers about that moment, and I've been blessed to be involved in pro sports, especially in the NFL, and into actually embedded in the team. So I get to hear doing interviews with players. I hear what you just said, except they're talking about on the field and they're talking about that. And it's all the same. If you want to succeed at the highest level of whatever it is you choose to do, you got to put in the time, and you have to be able to learn to control your mental and emotional state during that moment.
That's right. That's right. Don't ever be afraid to, put yourself out there and try and get that shot. The only way you find out if you can do it is if by doing it, and you
Yeah.
won't know otherwise. And it's really, as long as, especially like when don't open your mouth and say you can do it when you don't have any clue as to whether or not you could do it. But hey, like the director may say, can we try to do this? Is that even possible? And you go, well, I don't know. Let's find out. But don't be afraid to say, no, we can't do that. If the capabilities of your equipment can't do that, let's say, let's try. And then if you can't do it, they understand. But then if you can, you've just, got a nice attaboy too, you know?
Yeah, those are good because that's attaboys get you the next
That's
gig.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So give me your what you would say is your crown jewel. What was the gig you really enjoyed? Maybe you went in a little nervous, maybe you went in a little unsure, but it was when you were there, the crew was perfect, the show was perfect, what you accomplished was spot on. Is there one of those that you would say that was the pinnacle?
There's a few shows that it's like you go into work that day not expecting anything, and you just come out and you did nothing wrong. Everything you did, every shot you did, just was perfect that day. And then there are other days you go in there and you can't do a single thing right. And it's funny between directors. It's funny what somebody likes, and it's funny what somebody doesn't like. And like I said, you may make one director absolutely happy, stoked all day long, and then you walk into the next job and he's not happy at all. And so,
Yeah.
there are those moments, like a few of the aerial jobs that I've done. We did one for Boeing with the 787, and we got this fantastic shot of the plane coming right up at us. Looks like it's going straight up in the air. And we got back with all the other footage that we shot, and when it came to that one, it was just like, that's it. That's the one we want. That's what we're looking for. And you just, everything else you did that day was gold, because of that one shot. And you couldn't do anything wrong. And then you go and you shoot something else, and like maybe the next day you're doing working on a remote head, and no, that's not what I want, I need this, and that's all you hear is no, no, no. And you feel like you just, or even Steadicam, oh my God, that's not what I'm looking for, and you're doing exactly what he's telling you to do, but it's not coming through to you that way. And so, and they let you go, and I'm sorry, we're going to get another operator for tomorrow, and that only happened once. And so, and when it's like, I talked to the director of photography after that show, and he's just like, you know what, it's a first time director, don't worry about it. And he doesn't know what he wants. So it's, he's looking at you trying to see what happens when you give him what he wants, and then all of a sudden it's not what he wants, and so he can't look bad, so he's got to make you look bad. So you go and you just take it and walk on to the next show. You can't let it
Yeah.
get you down. You can't let it beat you up.
Last thing I want to just touch on real quick because we're cruising here with time. What do you see the industry looking like 5 years from now?
Well, it's certainly changing. I see a lot of the YouTube stuff, what was it? Some of these other internet hubs that you got, and all this video content is going out, and you can make a TV show with a still camera and your iPhone, and it's some good shows or some good content, and some of these people are really doing well. And I mean, a lot of it's just crap, but that's just something you get along the way. And I see exactly what's been happening is a lot more TV shows that, like, Netflix is making their own. Amazon is making their own. They're fine, and it's all good content. and they're getting some good writers, and and that's what we need as far as, because there was such a long time that every movie that was made was like a sequel to this, or and they got like 12 sequels, and you just, it kind of gets to a point where the stuff isn't good anymore and nobody cares. But when you start seeing some of this content that's come out, and like all these uh, channels, like I said, Netflix and Prime and all that, and it's just good TV shows and good series, and I think that's what you're going to see more of, is, and or made for Netflix movies, or made for Prime movie, or anything like that, and you just start to see the decent movies, and they're like sleepers. You wouldn't expect them to do well, and then you watch it and it's like, wow, this is great. Somebody was really thinking when they did this, and I think that's what we're going to see, is more streaming, more movies out, more content out on those private channels than you are going to see at the movie theaters. And unfortunately, I would love to see the movie theaters hang around. I would, there's nothing better than going to a theater, getting yourself some popcorn, and sitting down and watching a great movie. But the way it's heading, I think it's just going to be more and more in-home movies, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, because if these like Amazon Prime and Netflix and all these, if they're all making their own content and they're putting it out on their channels, then that's another great way of presenting what you have to show, because those streaming channels are making some decent money off of putting that content on their channel.
Right, right. And what do you think that does to frontline operators, the whole frontline production world? Is there more opportunity, or is technology going to shrink the opportunities?
No, I think because more and more people are really trying to put content out there, I think it's going to, ask for more operators, ask for more, especially movies, when they start filming a movie, you got all these crew members and everything, and who are really good at their crafts. And then some of these other movies that are, or TV shows that are in studio, if it's good content, they're going to keep going with it. If it's like a game show that that people are just trying to see, if this is going to bite, if people are going to like this, and it fails, it's just like, okay, well, that's another thing that's just kind of gone by the wayside. And what do you do with that? And, it was not necessarily a failure because they were able to see what people wanted, but that they were able, and then they learned from that, and just like we did coming up, they learn from that, and the producers understand that, okay, this wasn't the show, and
Yep,
they'll
yep.
find another one to do.
What Last question? What do you think a newbie coming in or coming up or thinking about getting into this industry? What should they focus on? And I'm going to give you two. Is it technology, or is it the output, like as you were saying, if your camera, if your audio, if your lighting, your fixtures, the skill craft of painting that picture, or is it the tech behind the painter? Which do you see to be a bigger niche for somebody to get in?
Well, being an operator, or being a director, or any of the positions, that's a specific position. When I came up, I did many things, and that kind of gave me an edge, to the point of, I'm not really out of work any time, because I focused on technical, I focused on operating, I focused on all kinds of different things. Some people say that there are people that just do the one thing, and then there are those that do the many things but aren't good at all of them, or aren't the best at all of them. They don't have to be the best; they just have to be good. So I think being employed more would go in the category of learning many things, and not just pigeonhole yourself to one, unless you know that one thing you do will carry you through everything. And the one thing I would say is persistence. It doesn't matter what career you go into, but be persistent at it. Don't just say, "Oh, I tried this for 2 days. I'm going to quit." Give it a good shot, and don't be afraid to, like we said, don't be afraid to not necessarily fail, but just find that, okay, that didn't work, so we got to work on something else, and find a different direction to go in. But you got to have persistence. You got to have that dream of wanting to keep going and not give up, because that when you give up, you're never going to reach it.
Damn. What a great way to end. That was perfect. Very, very philosophical. You had a kind of a Yoda feel there. That was nice.
Thanks.
Brian, thank you. This was great. It's going to be enormously helpful. Your career is amazing. You're amazing. I'm so glad that we got together over some by chance.
Absolutely.
But
I thank Chris for the introduction. So
yeah, no, it worked out great. We're going to stay in touch. There's just so much more that we can do as we start really moving Faro City up and out. And Faro City is just that. It's just a community where people like you, people like me, can help the next gen coming up, can help each other. I don't care what anybody says. We're still an industry of independent freelancers, and we're codependent on each other to work.
Absolutely.
And that's the critical difference, that people come out thinking, oh, I'm going to go get a job at NBC, or oh, I'm going to go to get a job at Lionsgate. Right. And then I'm going to be there for 25 years. Those days are gone.
Absolutely, they're gone. Even our positions, we don't, we could be gone the next day. Don't ever think that. Somebody gave me a good piece of advice. Don't ever think that your position is golden and you're never going to get fired from that position. There's always a chance that you can be let go. And the more that you sometimes have that in mind, sometimes it makes you strive to do the best you can,
Yep. You've said it many times throughout this interview, diversity. You have to have diversity in everything you do, skills, soft skills, hard skills, opportunities, and keep your eye on the future, because it's changing and you better be there when it makes that move. Right. Brian, I'm going to say thank you, and we're going to jump off.
All right.
But we'll stay in touch. Maybe we'll bring you back when more. There's so much I didn't touch on. Your career's amazing, and the gigs you did, I would love to just focus on a bunch of those gigs and narrow down. Okay, cuz I'll talk to you, Brian. Take care. Enjoy your nice weather, because we have crap.
Thanks,
See you later.